before I launch into this video, I will apologise for my absence of videos this week. You may have seen a video that I put out a week ago talking about copyright scams on my channel. I've been spending quite a lot of time in the background trying to deal with that. So that's taken up a lot of my time. That's eaten into my time for creating videos. I think I'm at pretty much at an impasse with that at the moment, and I will do a video on it probably tomorrow. But I don't think that's going to be taking up a great deal more of my time from here on in. Hopefully I can get back to a more regular schedule with videos for this channel. I will just say that for now, while I'm still fighting all this copyright stuff, I've privatised all the videos that worm has claimed copyright on, so that basically I'm not earning off them, but neither is he. Seems like a crappy thing to have to do, but this guy is scamming off hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of YouTube channels, and this is my way of making a stand. Okay, I will come back to that, and I will go into a video about that tomorrow or the day after. So in this video, I'm looking at a quite popular YouTuber here called James Smith, and he has 227,000 subscribers. So he's clearly quite influential, and his video is titled 9 Reasons you shouldn't move to Australia. Sorry, my brain just had to fix up the grammar while I was reading it. I'm not sure if this guy is actually serious or not in this. I haven't looked very far into it. He seems like a pretty decent bloke. So let's see what it is that he's saying and why he's saying it. And I'll reserve judgment until I've actually heard what he's got to say.
I came to Australia in 2016 as a backpacker and I never left. And if you're someone watching this considering moving to Australia, you should 100% not listen to me because I am biased. This is where I live, and low-key I'm the type of guy that has a couple beers and does a TED talk about why to move to Australia. So in this video, I'm going to give you some legitimate reasons why not to move here. I've already done a video, which you might remember, that did really well about reasons why you should move here. And today I'm going to give you some as to why you shouldn't.
So I think that unless this guy proves to be a complete utter tosser, that I might do his why you should move to Australia video as a follow-up video from this one.
Let's get into it. You're probably thinking spiders, sharks. You see like one spider a year. And the big ones that you see on Instagram are the huntsmen. So the ones that are like the size of your hand, they're the ones that are actually not too bad for you. They say they're the ones that eat the bad one. And it's the little ones, the redbacks, the white tips, they're the ones that can really get you.
I've actually never heard of anyone being bitten by a huntsman. I mean, I've seen countless clowns who have had them on their hands. I couldn't do that. They're too big for me to cope with. But I've never heard of anyone being bitten by them. I thought that it was the huntsmen's that their fangs or whatever they're called on spiders weren't strong enough to puncture the skin on people, hence the reason that they were harmless. Or is that the daddy long legs? If someone knows this, let me know. It's getting late in the evening and my brain's not going to help me out with it, and this is one instance where I'll just let you guys tell me rather than looking it up.
Then when it comes to sharks, I know I've said this a million times before, I'm more likely to hurt myself on the way to the beach than get eaten by a shark.
Can we also acknowledge here that Australia is not the only country that has sharks. Sharks live in the ocean. Hence, they get around a bit. You hear of people getting attacked by sharks in other countries. It's not just exclusive to Australia. And deaths for people who've been attacked by sharks are extremely rare.
The number one thing that I hate about Australia is luxury car tax. If you buy a brand new car in Australia, you are penalised if it is after a certain amount of money. So you work really hard. You think, I'm gonna treat myself to a brand new car. You know there's mad depreciation, but you go, I want to be the first person that does a fart in it. No. And even in this car, my dream car, Audi RS6, I bought one that was 2 years old so I could avoid the luxury car tax. Because when you're going to get something of your dreams, all the money that you're spending on it has been taxed. Personal income tax, been taxed. Fuel you put in it, been taxed. The business that you paid yourself a salary out of, been taxed. To then have all that post-tax money to go, I'm going to treat myself to something, have another tax. You're killing me.
Okay, so I actually had no idea whatsoever that the luxury car tax was that huge. That said, most of us can't afford $80,000 plus for a vehicle. So, yeah, it's probably not a huge concern for the majority of people. And I think if you're someone moving to Australia, chances are you've got so many other expenses with moving to Australia that you're probably not budgeting for an $80,000 car. If you are, well, you're probably not bothered by that amount of money. Most people I know that buy new cars are not likely to be spending anywhere near $80,000 on a new car. And I must admit, I was always taught when I was growing up, basically, the car, once it goes out of the showroom, it depreciates in a big way. So you're actually better off just buying something that's a few years old. So, it's a choice.
Then you eventually get your 2-year-old pre-owned car of your dreams and you're driving along and you think, I might unleash the engine. Point number 2, they have something in Australia called double demerits. If you get caught speeding on a public holiday, double the fine, double the points. But it's not just the day of the public holiday. They do it for like 3 bleeding days before and after. So you got a week of losing sleep over being 1 kilometre over the speed limit. Lose your licence territory.
So I'm not aware if those laws exist in Victoria. I don't know if they exist in all states. It's been a really long time, touch wood, since I've had a speeding ticket. Thank heavens for cruise control, because that just makes it so much easier. Although that said, the number of times when I've been heading down certain spots on the Calder Freeway and I've been in the process of overtaking and suddenly realised that I was approaching one of those fixed speed cameras and nearly got done. So it happens. Now I have to say though, as much as it sucks that the penalties for speeding are so huge and so costly and that so many people can't afford them, I guess you could look at it in another way, in that it's kind of a bit like having gun laws. It is slowing people down on the roads. Our road deaths don't even come close to, like per capita, don't even come close to the United States. Now apparently they are on the rise again, which is a little bit disturbing, and I have to say, I have noticed in the past couple of years there have been more aggressive drivers in Victoria. So maybe there needs to be another campaign, some sort of campaign on the roads to target that. But, I feel safer knowing that there's fewer chances of me encountering someone doing 200 k's an hour on the Calder Freeway when I'm heading down to Melbourne and wanting to just safely get from A to B.
Back in the UK, as long as you haven't had 5 pints, you're fine, you're safe. Out here, No offence to Australians, you're not the hardest working population in the world. Always got a public holiday, and when you do, it comes with the double demezzles. Which brings me on to number 3. It is a public holiday. You say to yourself, do you know what? I'm going to go out, have a few drinks tonight. You're out in Sydney. First night out I was in the Argyle. Lovely bar. Guy, bouncer comes over. I go, mate, wrong guy. He says, get out. I said, what have I done? He goes, brother, you're drunk, brother. I can see you swaying across the dance floor, brother. I was like, yeah, of course. That's why I've come here. I'm on a night out to do one thing. That's to get pissed. In Australia, you get kicked out for being pissed. I was like, brother, that's the only reason I've come here.
I will give it to him. He can tell a good story. Give him a few more years in Australia and he could tell you the good old Aussie yarn. Now, I have to say, it goes back to the whole RSA thing again, responsible serving of alcohol. Once again, the whole idea is about protecting people. You know, we don't want people going to the pub and getting alcohol poisoning and ending up deceased. Or hopping in a car while they're over the limit and causing injury or death for themselves or other people. So, once again, I've got no objections to responsible serving of alcohol laws. If you really want to get that plastered, stay home and do it. Invite a few mates over. Make sure they've got somewhere comfortable where they can stay the night. Make it an at-home thing. You don't need to go out to the pubs to get totally wasted. I know, different generations. This guy looks like he's a bit of a party kind of dude. I get it. But, you know, you gotta think about other people in the world other than just yourself. That's probably a bit harsh, but my thoughts.
There are little things like in New South Wales that they don't appreciate are real weird. Your cars all have to be parked facing the same way. So if you're driving on the left, which is one thing Australia have done good, they drive on the right side of the road, be in the left side. But if you want to do a soixante-neuf and reverse into the other side of the road, no, you get a fine. Of course you do.
Okay, I do kind of get the impression that New South Wales is a bit stricter with a lot of things than other states. I'd be interested to know what other people think or what other people's experiences are. I was a little bit confused as to what he was saying there, but if he's talking about essentially doing a U-turn and reversing into a spot, I could see why that would be problematic. But then in a quieter street, it should be okay to go into a parking spot from the opposite side of the road so long as you are facing in the right direction. Like, for example, a lot of the streets here in Bendigo have angle parking now. And if it's one of the quietest streets and there's no traffic around, I don't know if I'm breaking the law, but if there's a spot, an angle parking spot on the opposite right side of the road to where I'm headed, and there's no other cars around, I will zip across the road into that spot. Obviously, if it's a busier street and there's traffic, then I'm not going to do that because it's dangerous and quite possibly is illegal. But yeah, that's probably me just proving my ignorance of Victorian road rules that maybe I should be more familiar with.
Which brings me on to the next thing they don't tell you about. The sun. Yeah, it's sunny, yeah, it's warm. You get a bit of sunburn in the UK. People say, oh, you've been on holiday. Yeah, where you been? Tenerife, Benidorm. Don't worry about it. Being a Brit with a tan line, with a bit of a farmer's tan, something to be proud of. Not in Australia. You get shunned. You get abuse. Hi, brother. Not heard of Factor 50 before, brother? A little bit of sunburn. You might as well have just insulted their religion if you walk around here sunburnt, because skin cancer. 10 minutes in the sun, bosh. The kids out here, they have a rule, no hat, no play. If you don't bring a hat here to stop the sun from getting on you, you're not going outside. So when people do say, James, caught a bit of sun, mate, I go, listen, I spent 28 years in the UK, only getting sunburnt for 2 weeks a year. Let me have my time. Yeah, my shoulders peeled in Tenerife and Ibiza, but I'm 30 years behind you bastards when it comes to sun damage. Let me live. I do put cream on when I sunbathe, but the occasional dog walk in summer is going to give me that little bit of burn. But I'm Irish. We got to go red to go brown.
Now, he's saying he's been in Australia for 6 years, but a lot of things he's saying to me suggest a lack of understanding of Australian culture. We have learned that we need to respect the sun. Australia is the skin cancer capital of the world. So, there's been all the slip, slop, slap promotions or advertising since the 80s. So, for the past 40 something years, we've been told about the effects of the sun and the dangers of the sun. And you only need to be sunburnt once enough to have blisters or to have your skin peel to then be at extremely high risk of skin cancer. So it's not about how many years of exposure you've had. It only takes one bad lot of exposure and you could be facing issues with skin cancer anytime in your near future. So here I think he just does not understand just how serious it can actually be getting too much sun. People aren't telling him to be careful in the sun, to be a-holes. They're doing it because, well, we've been taught these things and, we understand the risks. So they're not doing it to be mean, they're doing it to be responsible.
Which brings me on to the next problem. Australia is massive, massive. You fly for 5 hours, you're still in Australia. You can get to Turkey from the UK in 5 hours. So because of that, Aussies, when it's time to travel around retirement, they go to Australia. They travel their own bloody country. Furthest they go is Bali, and Bali's 6.5 hours. That's close for them. And like Brits, we come here and we love it. I love it here. But then Aussies go to Europe and they're like, mate, everything's so bloody close. You get on a flight for 2 hours, you're gonna get to you don't even leave the state here within 2 hours. And in UK, you could be in any place in Europe. Which brings me on to another problem. A lot of Aussies never travelled. Like Europe, for them, they might as well have gone to Mars. I think there's a stat like 35% of Australians have never been on a plane out the country. Might have made that up.
Okay, there are actually a heck of a lot of Australians who do travel outside of the country. Yeah, perhaps we don't have Europe as a number one destination because there are plenty of other places that are closer that are really worth going to. New Zealand, Vietnam, need I go on? Heaps of places in the Pacific Islands. People still do go to Europe, but, there's other places in the world that you can visit. I've only been overseas once. I'm a bit more of a homebody, but I could name multiple people that I know who have travelled to all sorts of places in the world. So maybe it's just the circle of people that you connect with, but I could actually think of more people within my sort of closer friendship group and family group who've been overseas than I could who haven't. Don't know, maybe it's the circle of people that you connect with, but I don't think it's really all that dramatic. Yeah, it does take a bit of time to get across the country. That is why a lot of the time we will choose to travel within the country, because you've got the different climates within the country, you've got different areas, like things can be so different from one state to another. So there's so much to see, there's so many different experiences to be had here in Australia that a lot of people will do that experience. I don't see it as a bad thing.
Then the other problem is the elephant in the room, just how far away Australia is. It is miles away. I always joke and say, yeah, it's just a day away, 21 hours if you go Emirates route through Dubai, but it is a long way. Like, I do feel bad. My parents, my nephew, my sister, my friends in the UK, think about the whole world, the whole entire planet, and I decided to go to the very furthest part, bar New Zealand. I'm a terrible son, I'm a terrible brother, I'm a terrible uncle. But when it comes to determining where you live, it's like having a plant. You can't put a plant in the shade and expect it to flourish. When I came here, my mindset improved, my mental health improved, even though it wasn't bad before, my productivity improved, my businesses improved. So for me, it's just about being somewhere where I can flourish.
I can appreciate how hard it would be living so far away from family, because it isn't as easy to catch up. I guess the only plus side is that if family do want to visit you, at least if you're a decent individual, your family will be able to stay with you and not have to fork out for accommodation. So their main expenses is going to be airfares and any other extra costs, but not accommodation. But yeah, I can see where he's coming from, and I've got friends who have moved to Australia from the UK and had children since they moved to Australia, and that is hard because then the children are away from their grandparents. Okay, in one instance, one of my friends, her mother came to visit from the UK when COVID set in and ended up being a permanent fixture at her house for quite some time until she could actually return to the UK. But for the most part, you know, even if grandparents can come and visit in Australia, it's only a visit, and the kids are not getting the same sort of time with their grandparents that Aussie kids would get with their grandparents who live down the street. So I can appreciate that. But I guess at the same time, these days we do have FaceTime and stuff like that. So it's not as dire as it used to be 20, 30 odd years ago.
The time zones in summer, fantastic, because we catch 2 periods. I wake up, chat to people, they go to sleep, like chat to them in the afternoon. In winter, it's a little bit more difficult, but I do like it. If I lived in Bali or even Perth on the other side, you don't quite get those 2 interactions either side. So as far as the time zones, even though it is really far away, it's all right. Although Adelaide, South Australia, the state across, I swear they got like a 45-minute time difference. Like, what are you doing? Who came up with that? Who put someone in charge and goes, yeah, mate, we're going to get a time difference, 45 minutes.
I have to say, I'm with him on that one. Yeah, 30 minutes. But, I mean, time zones, yeah, I get it. But you expect it in 1 hour increments, not half an hour. It is. It's like, why even bother? I'm not sure what the logic is there, especially when you consider that if you are going to run a direct line up through South Australia, or at least 2 direct lines, I guess. So if you were to run lines the width of South Australia up to the top, then you've got areas of Western Australia that are on the same longitude as South Australia. Same with Queensland and New South Wales. And yet they're going to be on completely different time zones again. So how does it work? I have to agree with him on that. In terms of the time difference between different countries, yes, it can be challenging sometimes to connect with people, but you do quickly learn when people are, what different time zones are and when you connect with people. So I have acquaintances in Spain, UK, America, and I've had no problems connecting with them at a time when we're all awake. Not all at once, obviously, but you know what I mean.
Who signed that off, you weird? Now, one good thing about Australia, I was ranting about the tax. They don't have inheritance tax here. They're like, what? So you die in the UK and you got to pay tax? Yes. Yes, because you work all your life to pay taxes, to then buy a house where you got to buy stamp duty. Then not only have you got to pay off the loan with your post-tax money, you've then got to pay interest, which is another form of tax. Then if you pop your clogs without a trust fund set up, guess what? 40% back to the government. The Aussies are like, we can't understand that, man.
Okay, there's something at the back of my mind that says that we used to have that. If someone can clarify that for me, I'd be greatly appreciative. But yeah, it's at least one area where, for now, the Australian government isn't ripping us off.
Can't understand it. But even though you get all your grandparents' money when they die, what you can't get in Australia is a good Sunday roast. And I challenge anyone to tell me where there's a good one, because I went homesick after the pandemic. Oh, let's get a good Sunday roast. It doesn't exist. Doesn't exist, brother. There is no good Sunday roast here, brother.
If you find a decent pub that puts on decent meals, chances are you're going to find a decent roast. That said, a lot of people just do the roast at home. My cousin makes the most amazing roasts, and my dad used to make the most amazing roasts. I think here, probably it's still very much a at home with the family tradition, which is possibly why you don't see it so much other than at some pubs that, really like to put that sort of thing on. Maybe it is a dying thing in terms of eating out, I don't know. But I've been to some pubs that have put on some pretty damn good Sunday roasts.
Another shithouse thing is there's no new tonic in Australia. TGA, these bastards, they won't let us put the ingredients in a drink. If we were to sell it in like a sachet, they'd let us do it. But it's those of you that are in the UK, I'll put a link in the description where you can top up on new tonic. Get yourself some before you move out here. But yeah, like, it's crazy. You can get peptides in Australia. They're quite progressive when it comes to things like that. But putting theanine or nootropics in a drink, nah, mate. Nah, mate. You can go surf with sharks, but you can't put flipping nootropics in a drink. Mental.
Which is probably the reason why I've got no idea what he's talking about, so I can't really say much about it, other than it hasn't really affected my world at all that there aren't nootropics in any of my drinks.
Now, I can't speak on behalf of America or Canada, but let me tell you where the UK is undefeated. Police. UK police are sound. I've got in trouble a few times in my life. They've always been sound. Even if you end up in Notting Hill Carnival, peeled off your nut. I once had a Metropolitan police officer try and convince me that he was a dolphin trainer. I can't help but think the British police, not all of them, but the majority of them, are good people. Whereas in Australia, I'm sorry to say it, if you guys are on a power trip, it's like they were bouncers at the club kicking people out for swaying. Hey, brother, you're swaying a bit, brother. Gonna have to ask you to leave, brother. They got a taste of it and they became police officers.
Okay, I'm trying to think of a nice way to put this. But this guy comes across as a bit of a... I don't know if saying he's a bit of a knob is a bit too strong, but I could imagine him being perhaps a little bit mouthy with Australian police officers. And in Australian culture, I just think from listening to the way he speaks, I could imagine him rubbing people up the wrong way, rubbing people in authority police officers as security guards up the wrong way. And I don't think he intends to. I think he just doesn't understand the subtleties, I guess, in social mores, I guess, in terms of how Australians deal with police officers in Australia, or how Australians deal with security guards in Australia. So I think it's possibly an unfair judgment to turn around and crap all over Australian police like that and put them all in one category. Yeah, there are some police officers in Australia who are on a power trip and can be complete tosses. But I think some of what he's experiencing possibly comes from communication issues. Okay, I've tried to put it as diplomatically as I can. Hopefully I'm not being too rude here. Now, I've left out a huge chunk where he talks about stuff to do with recreational drugs, etc. That's not something that I choose to discuss on my channel. It's not a path that I particularly want to go down. So if you want to see what he has to say about that, then the link for his channel or for this video will be in the description below. Feel free to go and check that out for yourselves. But on my channel, I like to try and keep it as clean as possible. So I'm not going down that path. So I'm going to let him just finish off here, where he's now possibly going to redeem himself.
So today was all about trying not to be too biased. There are definitely some negatives to living in Australia. But despite all of those things, I still love it. Even though winter is creeping in and it does get cold here. It gets cold enough that you start your day with a woolly hat and a hoodie on, and then lunchtime it gets nice and warm. At least the one thing is, it is always kind of sunny. And I never realised how much I like blue skies until I went back to the UK for a long period of time, and I was like, it's grey. And in the UK it's wet. It's not even raining all the time, it's just wet. Oh, I'm out of breath. I've only been to the shops. Good cardio, bro. But my final point is this. With everything that you are thinking about doing in life, you are better doing it. And even if you're wrong, that's fine. If you were wrong, that is completely okay. You can always come back. Your old employer will probably take you back. You'll probably be able to find a similar apartment. Your mum and dad will be happy to have you back for a few months, whatever it is. I'm quickly going to tell you a story about my client called Jackie, who I trained for years. And when I told her I was thinking about going to Australia, she stopped. We're doing a warm-up on a cross trainer. She says, James, you need to go. She goes, me and my husband, Mick, we always wanted to go. Then before you knew it, we had kids and we had grandkids. It's the biggest regret of our life. And Jackie was one of my clients that I trained and loved seeing her, loved coming into the session. I'll never forget, Tuesday morning, I come around the corner, she looks at me, the first thing she says isn't good morning, isn't how are you, it's have you bought your ticket yet? Now either I was much worse at personal training than I ever thought, or Jackie didn't want me to make the same regret that she did. And the reason I made this video, like any other video about Australia, is say we bump into each other one day, maybe in London, maybe in Australia, maybe in America, I don't know. You can give me a nudge and you can either say, James, your video was the reason I came to Australia and I love it, which has happened. Or equally, you can say, James, I watched your video, I came to Australia, I didn't love it, but thanks for giving me the nudge. The only biggest mistake you can make is to want to do something and never to get around to doing it. Because you are way better being wrong than wondering what if. Good day.
Okay, I did like the way he finished it. I thought he finished on a positive note. I liked the message of, don't just think about it, do it, otherwise you might regret it. You're only going to regret if you don't do it. So I think that was a pretty good message. Now I will say, I think I would like to do a reaction to his reasons to move to Australia, because I'm interested now. So I think he's achieved his goal there of getting people interested in seeing his other video. I know there were a number of things in this video that I definitely disagreed with, but I think that comes down to the fact that him and I are clearly from two very, very different worlds. So we see the world differently, and in that sense, I guess it's probably not fair for me to be too judgmental about some of the things that he said that I disagreed with. You know, there's a cultural thing, there's a almost generational thing. I wouldn't be able to say that I'm old enough to be his mother, but definitely I am older than him. So there is definitely a there's a difference in ages there, which I think comes into play as well in terms of how I see the world and how he sees the world. Um, yeah, I don't think this was too bad a video. But like I said, things that I disagreed with, things that I did agree with. One of the things that really resonated with me was him talking about how it is so grey and dreary in the UK as opposed to the sunshine in Australia, or specifically in Sydney. And the reason I can relate to that is that is pretty much the main reason why I will never move back to Tasmania, because as beautiful as it is, Tasmania is so often grey and overcast. It is cold. You know, for 9 or 10 months of the year, it is grey, overcast. In winter, it gets dark really early. It doesn't get light till quite late. You miss a lot of sunshine in Tassie, whereas in Bendigo it's the opposite here. You see 9 or 10 months worth of sunshine throughout the entire year. Winter at the most is probably about 6 weeks. Well, for this little Tassie girl, I know I'll be there in short sleeves and short skirts and stuff on a 20 degrees day and see people from Bendigo who've clearly been here for much longer than me, who've got long sleeve trousers and long sleeve tops, and I think, aren't you hot? But yeah, so I can appreciate what he's saying there in terms of the sunshine. It really does make you feel so much better. So thanks for listening. If you're new, please subscribe to my channel. Also, please hit the like button. YouTube loves it when you hit the like button. It just helps get my video out there and seen by more people. And please leave a comment. What are your thoughts on what this guy has said? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Or are you like me, where you agree with some things, disagree with some other things? Let me know your thoughts. I love reading people's comments when they respond to my videos. I always look forward to reading people's comments and responding to them, so I'm looking forward to seeing what people have to say about this video. So, thanks for listening, and I'll catch you in the next one.